Welcome to This Got Me Thinking, where clarity comes from conversations and the connections that spark from them. I am your host, Chris LaFay, and today I have the pleasure of chatting with Chris Downey. Sometimes the worst possible outcome actually leads to exactly what you need. Chris spent 25 years in corporate marketing and had a successful career. And then he got laid off twice. And today, what he really focuses on is how those layoffs and the baggage that came along with them ended up being his biggest competitive advantage as a fractional CMO. I'll let him tell his story.
After I got, laid off last year, and it gave me so much extra time to kind of regain my guitar happy place. And it kind of triggered a lot of ability to learn. And I started learning a lot more about marketing again. And it's just kind of like getting laid off from corporate was the best thing that ever happened to me. It like sparked creativity, made me love guitar, made me love marketing again, got me back into tech, and just it's interesting how that stuff works out.
What got all of this started?
I had a pretty fortunate career, I would say. I worked at companies like Microsoft and Dell and IBM, and then Advanced Micro Devices. And so I kind of worked in a lot of big tech companies, and I made it through, most of my career without being impacted by layoffs. But a few years ago, I was laid off from IBM. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me then. It forced me to kind of progress in my career and decide what direction I wanted to head. I then ended up leading social media for Advanced Micro Devices, and I did that for 3 years, and thought I'd be there for a lot longer. And again, lots of changes in tech in the last year, and last November I was impacted by another layoff there. I kind of thought at that time I was just going to go and get, another big tech job. But I think, as we all know, 2025 is a very different year. And I think every week that I was, using AI to help me apply for jobs, it just got harder and harder. There was so much noise, so many more people entering the workforce after layoffs. And I had always thought that I was going to end my career by doing consulting. And after a few months of applying for tech jobs and just kind of going, I could go work there, but I'm not really passionate about the company or not really passionate about the job that I would be doing. I just kind of said, what am I waiting for? Why, what's keeping me from going out and starting my own company? And I sat down and kind of figured out what direction I wanted to march in. I figured out how to do it, like what, getting an LLC and things like that. And joined a CMO, fractional CMO collective. And that kind of got me over the hump of like, how do you set up the business and how do you set up your offers? But it really helped my brain to kind of say, okay, I now work for myself, and now I can go do the things that I always wanted to do and work with the people that I want to work with.
Shiny object syndrome is very, very real, especially when a lot of founders lean toward the visionary side of the spectrum and not as much the operational integration side of the spectrum. So you went from this highly enterprise job segment, and career path is really honestly the word I was looking for there. And now you're kind of on this opposite side of extraordinarily nimble, very flexible, very fast paced. How did you bridge that chasm there?
Poorly. No, it's been a great learning experience. I've worked with a lot of startups throughout my career. I handled a lot of the marketing side acquisition as we would onboard and acquire companies at past businesses. So I had a lot of experience working with founders, but probably later stage. Um, and as I came into this, I knew I had a lot to learn, right? So um, as I started talking with founders and colleagues about what my pitch should look like when I'm going in, they're like, here's what founders are looking for. And so I kind of tried to fit that mold. This, we move fast, we break stuff, that all sounded really familiar to me. But, I got a lot of questions from founders saying, okay, well, we need you to be able to do X, Y, and Z hands on. I'm like, well, why would you pay me to write social media posts? I can do that, but I'm probably not the best person to do that. Strategy and leadership are where I excel, where I can help you grow. But I kept trying to fit that mold for them, and it didn't resonate with them because they're like, well, this guy isn't going to be able to do this the way that, my junior marketing person that I hired could do it. And you know what? They were totally right. And that was the problem. Like what was I really bringing to the table is 20 plus years of big tech experience and understanding, like, back in the day when you had to make your website, SOX compliant, and there was no, I'm sure you did that. There was no rule book or instruction manual
Right.
on how to do it. You just
Yep.
figured it out. And when
Uh-huh.
you've got a website that's like 20 or 30,000 pages, I just
Man.
figured it out. It's and so my ability to manage big gnarly projects, either launching something new or taking a marketing program that's totally broken and fixing it, or to really tie it to the enterprise. If you are a founder who is trying to grow quickly, you are going to have much larger deal sizes when you're selling to the enterprise than when you're selling to the SMB market, for instance. So I have navigated enterprises for the past 26 years, and I know, for better or worse, how to navigate the complexities of a large company. Some of the companies I've worked for have been well over 100,000 people. And it's not complex because it was designed that way. It's just complex because of what that company is. And that's hard for a founder who's got like a really cool, like, product that clearly this would benefit you, but you've got to compete with all of these other things at the enterprise. And that's where I leaned into, this is the thing that I can do. And so I started kind of changing my pitch with founders and to say, like, here's what I'm bringing to the table. I know how to work with these big companies. I also know how to take nothing and turn it into something, or to take this mess you've got over here in the marketing team and clean it up and make it really effective. Because you're either looking for profitability or an exit when you're a founder, right? So you're either wanting to like run with this for a long time. I run marketing teams that help drive profitability. And if you're looking for the exit, you want to get acquired, I will partner with a founder and help you get to your ultimate goal.
Those first engagements that you had before you realized kind of where your moat was, is there a particular story that stands out that was a huge, like, oh, maybe I'm doing this the wrong way?
And I don't even know if it's the wrong way, right? The thing I love about marketing is it's a puzzle with 1,000 correct answers, right? And so for a lot of founders, they do want it done a certain way. And I went to a conference earlier this year that had a lot of my ICP in place. It's the RSA conference in San Francisco. It's all cybersecurity companies. And I was talking to a lot of folks, and it was interesting. Like, I was trying to fit their mold. And so I'd talk to people and they're like, well, we're not interested in what you're selling. And again, having not run a company before, like, as a new founder myself, kind of took it personally at first. And, you need to kind of get told no a few thousand times before it's like, oh, this has nothing to do with me. It's like I'm looking for people who are a good fit. And my problem, I think, like the realization when I was trying to fit their mold, I was hearing their needs and trying to answer it in the way that I thought they wanted it answered, instead of saying, "Oh, I understand your problem. Here's how I would solve it." And if they don't agree with it, that's fine. If I think you're wrong, I will kind of help you try to find a better answer. But if we just don't see eye to eye, there's nothing wrong with that. I will actually help you find somebody to help you. And there will be people who see eye to eye with. We, have similar goals. And, to be quite frank, I've been doing this for decades at this point. I have no desire to work with people that don't want to work with me. And so it's kind of like, the wisdom of age and experience, where I'm like, marketing, I went into marketing because it was supposed to be fun. Maybe I lost sight of that over the years. And now I'm back to like I want to do really fun stuff. And we've got all sorts of cool, fun tools in 2025. So I'm getting back to the fun bit.
Why do you think you lost sight of that over the course of your career?
I got focused on, like, you need to make money, you need to progress, you need to prepare for retirement, things like that. And sometimes at these large companies, and again, it's no fault, it's just how these large companies work. You're not always, your work is not always in the customer's best interest. And I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that, but I can tell you there were countless times where I created countless numbers of PowerPoint slides that went into a much larger deck to be able to be whittled down into the 2 slides that would be shown to an executive. And I look at the months of time that I spent in my career trying to answer a question that an executive may have without telling them, as the expert in this field, this is the thing that you need to know right here. And in these large organizations, you're navigating a lot of complexity and politics. And so you kind of start marketing to the approval instead of marketing to the good customer outcome. And maybe that is the answer to your question, Chris, is that at the point where you lose sight of the fact that you are trying to take a product that will help people and get it to the people it can help. And that is simply what we're supposed to be doing in marketing. And, if you've got a great product and it can help somebody out and they don't know about it, then you haven't done your job as a marketer.
Taking the everything that you've learned over the last 6 or 8 months or so since this like big pivot has happened, is there one small thing that you've learned that you wish you could go back and just plant a seed in former Chris's mind over the course of your career that would have helped shift this trajectory maybe a little bit faster?
Yeah. It's like I'll look back at myself and go, all right, hey, dummy, you've told every stakeholder for the last 25 years that marketing won't work unless you do these things. If you're marketing your own business, you need to listen to yourself. It's like some of the basic marketing things that I'm like, I thought I could get away without doing cold outreach. I thought I could get away without, um, you know, list 50 things. And as a solopreneur, you have to kind of pick and choose what things you're going to do because time is very finite. But there were certain things like, I'm a huge believer, and I find cold outreach on its surface and done improperly to be extremely cringeworthy. And the thing that I learned, and I've got another buddy who's a fractional COO, And I had this conversation with him. I'm like, learn from me. You're just starting out, and learn from me. You need cold outreach. And he works with companies that are about ready to fail. And he comes in and he saves them. And I was like, I can't imagine that you know enough founders whose companies are failing that you can just tap your network for that. But what I can tell you is there are a lot of people out there in a very tough year that 2025 is, where their companies are about ready to fail, and you can come in and save them. So they don't know who you are or what you do. So your ability to put yourself out there and introduce yourself, you're going to find people who are like, that's exactly who I need. And I've got a fairly sizable network. I've been in social media for, since 2011. My network is still not massive. I've got like 4,000 or 5,000 followers, and it's not big enough to have people just coming to me and giving me work. So I need to work at introducing myself who might be interested, introduce myself to people who might be interested in my product, and being very, in my messaging, more genuine than I probably would have been in a corporate setting, and just say, hey, my name is Chris. I've got 25 years of experience in corporate America. If you're a founder trying to sell in corporate America and you don't know how to navigate that, then I'm probably the guy who will help you. And if you've got complex projects, or like you built a marketing team that's just not working, I can help you. And so trying to translate that stuff is super, super helpful. And if I would have started that back in the beginning, like from the get-go, I would have had so much more learnings under my belt, and I'd be, way down the road on progress. But it is what it is. And, being a founder, you just kind of figure it out as you go, right?
The question I have for us here today is, where in my career have I lost sight of what originally excited me about what I get to do? And as Chris was talking about how he was creating slide decks, these massive slide decks, and then them getting whittled down by somebody else to the most important two things, and realizing that as a CMO, his target audience were the executives within his own company, and not the actual customers who are partaking in the solution. It made me think, like, who are we working for? And if you're an agency owner, are the people that are your clients, folks that are on your team, are they fans first? I'm a huge fan of the Savannah Bananas and Jesse Cole and the whole nine yards there. And they're very much, if it doesn't work for the fan, the one that sits in the seats, the ones that pays the ticket prices, we don't do it. So when you're running your team or you're running your company, you have two sets of fans, right? You have your clients on one side, but you also have your team as well, whether you own the business or whether you're directing the entire marketing department or whatever that looks like. And are the things that you're doing on a regular basis point the company as a whole to that fans first model? Does your team get excited to wake up every day and just thrilled that they get to go to work and spend their time here with you and with the team and doing all the fun and energizing things that it comes with all the client stuff that has to get done? Or on the flip side, if you're running your company, you're trying to figure out sales and who to bring on as a client, do those get you excited? And I realize there's this balance, right? Been in business long enough to know that not every client that you get to work with is going to be a home run, right? You're going to have some that are merely just cash cows, effectively, and such is life. We all have to understand what some of those look like every so often. And so I just challenge you to go back and think about, if you feel stuck with where you're at, go back and look at the people that you work with and the clients that you're attracting. And are you in the right rooms, and are you doing the right types of motions to be fans first? Are you looking at the bigger picture on how your work impacts everybody around you. That's what Chris got me thinking.